to be a voice for the Tennesseans who you choose not to listen to because of those.
They ousted this man for the same reason the FBI had Fred Hampton killed. This isn't, it's not just he's a Democrat. It's populist, progressive Democrat and a black man and very young and clearly a Rizzler. Listen to the way he talks. Jesus Christ. It's like listening to history. Yeah, okay. I can't believe they actually went through with it. So the GOP did the I don't know if I can say the funniest, maybe the most telling thing imaginable. So for those of you who don't know, okay, there were recently significant anti-gun protests held by mostly progressives in Nashville, Tennessee, which culminated in a protest around the Capitol building and 3 Democratic state House members protesting within the Capitol grounds, which means, you know, they're in the middle, they've got a sign, they're being loud, great, whatever, free country, right? Well, no. There were 3 Democratic state House members who participated, 2 black ones and 1 white one. And in the funniest possible move they could have made, the GOP suspended the 2 black ones, not the white one. In an extraordinary act of political retaliation, Tennessee Republicans on Thursday expelled 2 Democratic lawmakers from the state legislature for their role in a protest calling for more gun control in the aftermath of a deadly school shooting in Nashville. A 3rd Democrat, that's the white one, was narrowly spared by a 1-vote margin. Wonder who flipped their votes on that one. Curious. Look, this is huge, okay? I want to be clear. I want you to really think about what this represents, okay? For protesting against, essentially, the GOP behavior, they have kicked them out of state house. It is an obscenely authoritarian gesture. It is also, if I understand correctly, the first time state house members have been banished in Tennessee. I think it gets into that. Banishment is a move the chamber has used only a handful of times since the Civil War. Most state legislatures have the power to expel members, but it is generally reserved as a punishment for lawmakers accused of serious misconduct, not used as a weapon against political opponents. And that is explicitly what this is. This is not a serious misconduct thing. This is literally just ousting your political opposition. First time this has happened in the country as a whole for this reason. Is this really the first partisan expulsion for any state house in the history of the United States? That is insane. Absolutely insane. This is Justin Jones' speech. Oh, we'll see. Don't worry. We'll see. Republican Representative Gino Bolso essentially said the 3 Democrats had conducted a mutiny. They were just protesting inside the Capitol.
Assault weapons, and you respond with an assault on democracy. For years, one of your colleagues who was an admitted child molester sat in this chamber, no expulsion. One member sits in this chamber who was found guilty of domestic violence, no expulsion. We had a member pee in another member's chair in this chamber, no expulsion. Since you're trying to put us on trial, I'll say what you're really putting on trial is the state of Tennessee, a state in which the Ku Klux Klan was founded, is now attempting another power grab by silencing the 2 youngest black representatives and one of the only women, Democratic women in this body. It is in that spirit of speaking for my constituents, of being a representative of the people, that I approached this well on last Thursday, breaking a House rule, but exercising moral obedience to my constitutional responsibility to be a voice for my people, to be a voice for the Tennesseans who you choose not to listen to because of those.
They ousted this man for the same reason the FBI had Fred Hampton killed. This isn't, it's not just he's a Democrat. It's populist, progressive Democrat and a black man and very young and clearly a Rizzler. Listen to the way he talks. Jesus Christ. It's like listening to history.
Those NRA checks. For so long, this body, drunk with power, has modeled for the world what we know as nothing less than authoritarianism. And today is the climax of that behavior. But you will not be victorious because there are generations of young people who see what is going on. There are young people that as you try and beat us down, they are rising up to take back this state. That is why the nation is watching you today.
It has been massive. I cannot overstate how much of a step towards fascism this is. The other representative
are seeking to expel District 86's representation.
Dude, the trip on them both. Oh, this is a clip from... Oh, hello.
From this house.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Mike.
In a country
hey, David.
that was built on a protest. In a country that was built on a protest. You who celebrate July 4th, 1776, pop fireworks and eat hot dogs. You say to protest is wrong because you spoke out of turn, because you spoke up for people who are marginalized. You spoke up for children who won't ever be able to speak again. You spoke up for parents who don't want to live in fear. You spoke up for Larry Thorne, who was murdered by gun violence. You spoke up for people that we don't want to care about. In a country built on people who speak out of turn, who spoke out of turn, who fought out of turn to build a nation. I come from a long line of people who have resisted.
That's what they're saying.
God damn. Listen to what Olayami has to say on this. She is super correct about these two men being in danger. Well, give me a clip if you have a clip. I don't doubt it at all that those two men are in danger. First of all, you know, opinionated, young, and charismatic black men have always been priority number one for targeted violence in this country. And for two, this is the forefront of the most aggressive anti-democratic push we have yet seen from the Republicans. I would say that this is really no different from January 6th in the extent that it is an expression of their anti-democratic will. January 6th was stochastic and messy and extra legal. This is legal. This is just an institutional expression of the exact same set of priorities, the same desire, which is, of course, complete unilateral, undemocratic control of this country so they can kill and torture all of us at their well-being, at their pleasure, at their leisure. Our suffering is not an incidental product of their power seeking. It is the goal. They've always conducted themselves in a fashion which makes that clear. They do not do what they do out of a pure and utilitarian pursuit of power. They are also evil. Clearly so. They can run again and now they're famous and rising stars. Yeah, well, that's why I worry for them. They can run again and they can command a lot of charismatic interest, you know, which makes me wonder if anyone would try to shut them up. Not likely. I'm not saying it's 51-49 or higher, but it's something worth considering. Here's the representative being an absolute gigachad. I've heard rumors of this. Yeah, there have been protests throughout Tennessee since this happened. Like, a lot. And there are a lot of videos to go over, too.
People, especially children who march, children who are beaten by dogs, children who are beaten. If I got to get expelled, I'll take that.
Why do you think that you and Justin Jones were expelled, but Gloria Johnson was not expelled?
You cannot ignore the racial dynamic of what happened today. Two young black lawmakers get expelled and the one white woman does not. That's a statement in and of itself.
Yeah. But you'll be back. You plan to be back.
We'll be back. I believe Memphis and Millington gonna send us back. And we're gonna keep fighting for our communities because the status quo is not working. It's hurting people. It's killing people. And they're treating things like this as normal. We can never normalize the ending of democracy. We can never normalize the tyranny of the way that these people in positions of power are operating due to white supremacy and due to the maintenance of patriarchy. That's what we're up against. But we are going to fight it because we believe that there is a future that we can live into that is better than the present that we currently have.
Remember what I said earlier today about the GOP not offering anything other than hatred? No vision of a better world? That's why people like this are so dangerous, you know? That's why people like Fred Hampton are so dangerous. Because they're able to see beyond the immediate petty political gain of demonization, of hatred, of paranoia, and are always able to build towards that city on the hill. People like that are very powerful and they're very politically dangerous, and they're one of the reasons why what's happening right now in Tennessee is so important. Here's the white representative, by the way. I don't know why I take my earbuds out when I'm about to put them back in.
Yes, and we're going to fight hard. Yes, and we're going to fight hard to get him back.
She's being asked why she was not expelled when the two black men were.
I will answer your question. It might have to do with the color of our skin.
And by the way, how based is it that we're entering an era of politics where we no longer have Democrats pussyfooting around the fact that Republicans are racist? For so long, we've had this, some people will say it, but Republicans are like, well, they're not as good on race issues. They failed to consider. I think we need to return. Okay, it's time for us to be straightforward. Yeah, a lot of them are just right. That's it. They just hate black people. That's it. It really is that simple. Look back at American history and tell me that it has not often been that simple. People who pretend there's some greater complexity to it, well, sure, sometimes there is, but a lot of the times there definitely isn't. Go back to 1879. Hello, white man from Missouri. Give me your position on race relations. Well, I have a very complicated and nuanced set of opinions which describe my, why I want slavery to be reinstated. No, of course not. They're stupid. They're idiots. They hate black people. It's simple. It's often very simple, frustratingly simple. But that's how it is. Yeah, we have a lot of links to look at, folks. Just a sec. Let me clear these ones here. The youngins be protesting. Can legislators say that directly about colleagues without being penalized by law? Yes. I agree with these students here. I assume they're students. They're probably students.
Yeah, it's like they're incredible.
Oh, yeah,
they're incredible. But when I see incredible black men in this context doing this, I can't help but recognize all the times I've seen incredible black men in that context doing that. And we are talking about them in what ifs and what could have been, because past tense, because they're killed. They're targeted and killed. So that is, I like I say, and I think that's something, we forget sometimes how different environments are for protests. And people could take that for granted. As for what New York City is and what NYPD is, there's still a big difference between protesting a Black Lives Matter in Manhattan versus what it is in Mississippi. There are serious things. When I've talked to different organizers on the ground and different activists and stuff following the different deaths of different black people, depending on what they are far different constraints of what the danger is locally in those places and those environments. And the internet sometimes can blend the world in a way where we don't really realize what the outside environment is there, right? That might be going viral on Twitter and we're like, oh my God, this person is amazing. This person is this person could be a great.
My main concern, okay, the GOP wants power and the GOP wants blood, okay? And the problem is there are only two ways to get to do that. There are only two paths to the top, legal and extra legal. January 6th was legal. It was extra legal. This was legal. There are two roads you can go. Now, the legal strategy is one in which the GOP makes an effort. You're welcome for the clip. Where the GOP makes an effort to, get as many votes as they can, gerrymander, whatever, get in the White House, and then, along with the Supreme Court and Congress, you strip back the law. But as we've looked at today, I think that the window for legal victory for the GOP is narrowing a little bit. It looks like what is that Supreme Court case that we've been so concerned about? It looks like that case may no longer be on the docket. There was a procedural change. Harper v. Moore, that's right. They might not rule on Harper v. Moore. And what's more, we recently had a bunch of Rust Belt victories for the Democrats. Polling indicates that interest is flagging in Republicans' insistence on making everything about wokeness. But here's the thing, folks. The GOP isn't going to give up. They're committed pretty hard, and the party's more or less QAnon adjacent with its rhetoric from top to bottom by this point. If they can't get what they want through legal means, what do you think they're going to do to get it anyway? It really makes me worried about the safety of popular Democratic populist legislators, because I worry they might just tone up the stochastic terrorism element of things. I mean, the Club Q shooting only happened a couple of months ago. And what happened after that? The GOP loved it. The GOP loved it. The GOP loved the Club Q shooting. They were crowing about it. Oh, haha, this obvious neo-Nazi with a bunch of recorded history of being anti-queer claimed they were non-binary before killing a bunch of queer people to bar. Ooh, look at you, the left. Ooh. They loved it. They love stepping over the blood of our comrades. It just makes me think they're going to turn that up. All those power station attacks, the substation attacks. Adam Waffenleder arrested in Portland just a couple of months ago after an attack on a substation down there. Why are neo-Nazis so insistent on knocking out power grids, which would then, say, you know, make the police ineffective and deactivate home security systems, I wonder. I'm just saying. I don't know how the future is going to turn out, but for every electoral failure the GOP suffers, I think we must consider an increased risk of non-electoral activism on their part.
Speaker and this person, but this person could be in their real life where they're at. They are a target, and they are a person that has a lot to be concerned about and are in danger. So when I see 2 black men and a woman targeted on this level to where they have to give a very moving speech like that, because I don't know when last I've seen either a speech to the level of either speech they've given, it makes me worry for them and hope for that they are covered and protected. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
And like a really the point is,
wise words. I was given this clip to refer to her speaking, and I agree with what she says.
See, day for Tennessee, because it will signal to the nation that there is no democracy in this state. It will signal to the nation that if it can happen here in Tennessee, it's coming to your state next. And that is why the nation is watching us, what we do here. My prayer to you is that even if you expel me, that you still act to address the crisis of mass shootings. Because if I'm expelled from here, I'll be back out there with the people every week demanding that you act. If you expel me, I'll continue to show up because this issue is too important.
Is that the applause from the people outside of the chamber?
Continue to show up because this issue, if you expel me, I'll continue to show
God damn.
up because this issue is too important. I talked to too many students and mothers in tears this week who said, thank you for doing something. And so if you expel me, I recognize that it's not just about expelling me, but it's about expelling the people. But your action will do the exact opposite. It will galvanize them to see what is happening in this state requires sustained action. And so I hope that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, regardless of what you decide to do to me, because this is not about me, but this is about those young people who are asking us to use our position and to uphold our oath, to protest and dissent from any action or legislation that is injurious to the people.
Man, I really just have no desire to interrupt him. Whew. Spectacular. Are they banned from holding public office? No, I don't believe so. Their expulsion does not deny them the ability to run again. They can run again in a few months. It goes to a special election. Gotcha. I don't actually know. There are very few things that can prevent you from running again, I believe. We don't offer much in the way of limitations there. In this case, at least, that is a good thing. I cannot fathom these two doing anything other than crushing their special elections. I can't imagine anybody. It's a guaranteed re-election. I cannot imagine they do not. Will you be joining PV to canvass for them in the special when the time comes? I'm going to play to it. No, I don't think they need it. I think canvassing for them would be like canvassing the tides in and out with every day. I cannot imagine any. I mean, we'll see, I suppose. I'm not sending people out to canvass for the sun to rise in the east every morning. Doesn't hurt to do it anyway to get those connections, but I am supremely confident in them. Can't they just be expelled again? If they are expelled again without even a semblance of a pretense, literally just without even a slight excuse, there would have to be national recourse, or there is no longer democracy in this country. They didn't have any pretense in the first place. I know. Well, they have a pretense. It's just not a real one. It's a made-up one. It's a fake one. Or, you know what? Just condemn them to run special elections and win with larger margins every time. We're just going to run this every 3 months, and every time they come back with a slightly higher proportion of the votes in their district, until they're showing up with like 99.1% of the vote, you know? If nothing else, it guarantees discourse. A Republican, as if you couldn't tell looking at him. Who does this guy think he is? What's the name of the lawyer from To Kill a Mockingbird again? Look at this guy. Look at this dude. Atticus Finch, thank you. I haven't read that in so long.
And we wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to defend your actions. One of the questions that keeps coming back to my mind that I hope maybe you can answer is when you say no action, no peace, what do you mean? What does Representative Jones mean by no peace? Thank you.
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I would invite my colleague from Putnam County to join any protest where that is a very familiar chant that usually goes, no justice, no peace. And I believe the roots of it lie in something that Martin Luther King stated, that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, but it is the presence of justice.
Holy shit, he nailed it. Was that a setup? Was that a setup by the GOP? Is the GOP guy a plant? That was like the optimal, like in 1,000 universes, that was the road to go down. Jesus Christ.
That's what I was saying, is that until we act, there will be no peace in our communities. In addition, I would like to read some context about that chant that comes from Jeremiah 6:14.
Oh my God.
I'll read the New Living Translation. It says, they offer superficial treatments for my people's mortal wound. They give assurances of peace where there is no peace. I'll go to the New International Version. They dress the wound of my people as though it was not serious. Peace, 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 they say, where there is no peace. That's what the chant means, is that we have no peace. And that until we act, there will be no peace for the thousands of children who came here demanding that we act, who are afraid that if they're in school, they will be gunned down because you have passed laws to make it easier to get a gun than it is to get health care in this state. You've passed laws to make it easier to get a gun than it is to vote in this state. And so that there will be no peace in Tennessee until we act on this proliferation of weapons of war in our community. That is the peace I was talking about. That is what I was saying.
Jesus Christ. Man, I wanted to compare him to MLK the way he was speaking before, but I didn't want to because I don't want to be like, oh, you know one charismatic black guy. But like pulling up the Bible verse and shit and the way he talks, Jesus Christ. There's a reason why MLK got to be so popular, and it's because it's a mixture of obviously being a Riz god, I mean clearly, like obviously, but also having this kind of like paternal pastor charisma that is inoffensive to liberals and atheists and agnostics because it is humanitarian in nature, but speaks to an underlying desire for sort of like authoritative moral judgment from a religious figure that a lot of conservatives resonate with. It's an intersection between those two, and it's just in America at least, it is broadly an incredibly effective way at getting your point across. Yeah, it's very, very good. In their districts, Biden is plus 50 and plus 41. As long as they get the nomination, they'll win. Well, that would be the core point. It would be them getting the nomination. The risk isn't them being replaced with a Republican. The risk is, would they be replaced with a more moderate Democrat? would Democrats in these districts be cowed and fearful? Would they go, okay, well, these guys were too radical. They were rabble-rousers. We need more moderate. And I don't think there's a chance in the world of that happening. I think this will only make them more popular. I think that their primaries in the special election will go very well. Vaush, the local election council, can just reappoint them to their positions. What? Why would city council members be able to reappoint a state house member? At least 15 members of Nashville's 40-seat Metro Council said on Thursday they plan to reappoint expelled former Rep. Justice Jones. D. Nashville sent him back to the Tennessee House of Representatives. After hours of fiery debate, the House expelled Jones in a 72-25 vote, and Rep. Justin Pearson D. Memphis in a 69-26 decision, move that put the nation's eyes. I'm not entirely sure how this works, like, jurisdiction-wise. I don't know why a city council would have authority over appointments for a state house, but, I mean, if the Tennessean says it can be done. Filling the vacancies now falls to county legislative bodies, and in Jones's case, Nashville's Metro Council. Jones vowed to return. We'll see you on Monday, he said. Jesus Christ. Members of the legislature are not allowed to fundraise during the legislative session, but within hours of his expulsion from the chamber, Jones reactivated his campaign fundraising website. You fools, you buffoons. The Jones campaign fundraising apparatus is now fully operational. You've activated my trap card. Jesus. Oh yeah, I should follow him on Twitter. What's up? Well, I don't know the specifics of Tennessee, like state, city, metro council, legislation appointee business, but if the Tennessean says it can be done, I trust them. Can't forget this Giga Chat. Yes, give me Pearson, please. Now they're my friends. I will make them my oomfies. Here. In a rare move, Biden has decided to actually comment on anything going on in this country. How nice. That's great. We have plenty of negative to say about Biden soon, though. So, you know, we'll take this while we can. Thank you, Canoe. Oh, we got a lot of links to look at. Oh boy. Oh, cool. Tennessee Holler founders home reportedly targeted in weekend shooting. This is the more progressive. This is like the Nashville-based. Yep. The Tennessee Holler has been a journalistic org loudly supportive of the Dems being ousted. And the editor's house just got shut up. Remember what I said earlier? As they suffer electoral defeats, the risk of stochastic violence goes up. Drive-by shooting. Literally, literally, these fascists targeting, trying to kill journalists who they don't like. Straightforward as that. No ambiguity. Wait, this guy was the editor who supported removing the Dems? Oh, is this guy like the other editor? Because they've been super progressive here. Founder and editor of the liberal site, the Tennessee Holler, and a former candidate for political office. No, this guy's a lib. Unless, Yeah, he supported the Democrat. No, sorry. He didn't support removing them. He supported the Democrats who were removed. The Tennessee Holler is a progressive, or at least liberal. You said strongly supportive of the Dems being removed. Oh, you're right. That is a perfect ambiguity right there, isn't it? That could mean either supportive of their removal or supportive of them, the ones who were removed. Okay, yeah, I mean of them. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Yeah. Incorrect phrasing. The Vaush fumble? The Vumble. Guys! They're literally trying to gun down journalists. Do not meme your way out of understanding the severity of this.
Reminded me of... Well, thank you so much for having me on, Lawrence. And today was incredibly triggering. And
interesting.
And just reminded me of the reason that I got in this fight in the first place. We saw two black, young Democrats, patriots who were simply just fighting to end gun violence in their communities, to fight for a safer Tennessee, to fight for freedom and liberty for every single person in their home. And they were expelled today for that fight because of the color of their skin, because they refuse to live in a country where we lose 100 people a day due to gun violence. And I am in solidarity with them on this. And
true, PV22 did canvass for this man, and then he won. No doubt because of us. I refuse to consider any other factors.
we know to be true is this: they can expel these two members from the House, but they cannot expel this movement from this country. And that's why the right wing, not just in Tennessee, but across this entire country, is starting to move into this fascist ideology of removing people from office, passing laws to change education, because they know that time is not on their side, because a new generation, the most progressive generation in the history of our country, will not stand for a country.
This is true. Republicans are terrified of Gen Z. All the polling data we have indicates that young people, like 22 and younger, whatever Gen Z's limit is now. Gen Z is 25 and younger now, actually. Whatever. Young people are like ridiculously progressive compared, like the silent generation to the boomers. They became more progressive. Then the boomers to the millennials. But the millennial to the Gen Z gap is this massive uptick in progressivism. And for me personally, I think it's because Gen Z is the first generation to have, and I think this sounds kind of trite, but I think it's real. They're the first generation to have grown up in schools where gay and even trans people are just an accepted and normal part of growing up. I think that's the big one. I really do. Because exposure to minorities, to talk with them, to engage with them directly, sets so much of your inclinations politically. It moves them forward. You might have seen a viral clip recently of the high school back in 2002, and some people were praising it, and a lot of people were pointing out that statistically speaking, everyone in the clip was very homophobic back then. And I don't think a lot of young people understand. Like, guys, I graduated from high school 12 years ago in 2011. Even back then, and it was a relatively progressive school, even back then, every class, and by class I mean the entire age group, the entire grade, had a gay kid, and they were weird for it. Even back then, in a relatively progressive school, it was a tittering little rumor that was had some guy dressed too flamboyantly, and it was like an ooh-ha-ha thing, And now as I understand it in high schools, these motherfuckers are gay all over the place, and God bless them for it. And that exposure, the fact that they have that point of contact, the ability to experience friendship, or even just like casual acquaintanceship, or even just being around people who aren't like them, to get along with them, it just makes it a lot less likely they grow up to be hateful. A lot less likely. And yeah, that is the point of the don't say gay shit in Florida. 100% it is. Conservatives are fully aware of the fact that right now, the not even woke education, the simple process of allowing young people who have access to the internet, who can see the world outside of themselves, to congregate in normal social settings, will make them too progressive for the GOP to continue to exist. That's why DeSantis has become a role model in American fascism, because he understands correctly, mind you, that schooling is the enemy of the GOP. Even allowing children to engage normally with each other is just too progressive. It just reality drives people away from the GOP. They are fighting against the tide. We really are in a race against the clock, are we? No, they are. With every year that passes, things get better for us. They are, and this is why I say the desperation is rising. This is why I worry about the stochastic terrorism. The eventual progressive turn of this country, thanks to Gen Z, is a mathematical near inevitability. The question is, can the GOP do enough damage or take enough power until that point that it becomes moot? Of course, if this country is not a democracy, what Gen Z wants doesn't matter anymore. So that's the question. The GOP knows they have a finite amount of time to achieve the power that they need in order to keep democracy from getting in the way of their autocracy. And you can do that legally or extra legally. As the editor and founder of the Tennessee Holler recently found out, extra legal actions to dissuade political disagreement are very much on the table for the far right, for the mainstream right.
Representative Gloria Johnson and her attorneys, who they too are seeking to expel right before I speak and before they work to expel me, which I expect to happen too. We are losing our democracy. This is not normal. This is not okay. If you look at what it takes to expel a member, what it
Vaush, this feels like the polar opposite of what you've been saying for months about how falling into fascism is practically inevitable at this point. No. It was always a matter of time. The long-term popularity of fascism, I have said, would be dictated by our response to climate change and the social instability it brings about. Then I thought, well, the GOP is racing ahead of that time scale pretty quickly. They're moving it up quite quickly here. I think that we will have to reconcile with fascism at some point. My confidence in whether we will win that fight varies, absolutely, depending on how the news is going and how good I feel that day. But the reconciliation is, I believe, still going to be quite bad. Please don't mistake my optimism for naivete here. I still think there's a lot of bad stuff on the horizon. You know, over 100 million people in this country support the agenda of the GOP, at least in some form or another. That doesn't just go away. A lot of those people think that defeating the liberal, pedo, whatever agenda is worth living and dying for. The scars that have been left in this country, even if we succeed in legal stewardship of the country through democratic means, and we prevent some kind of fascist takeover, we're still going to have problems for a long time. But I still believe, if we handle things correctly, if things go the way I want them to, time still ticks in our favor. Climate change notwithstanding, in terms of the disposition of this country, I still think time works with us. That's my hope, at least. I can't really see the future, but I do believe that. I will admit that my perspective on this has been influenced significantly by the apparent unpopularity of the woke narrative with Republicans since the 2022 midterms. That has massively improved my my perspective on this, because ultimately, like, you know, no matter which road the GOP takes to power, things get a lot harder for them if their main selling point is kind of losing its wear. And keep in mind, in terms of wokeness as a predominant, like, political scapegoat for their action, we're only like 3 years in, really. Like, if the GOP is getting sick of, well, their constituents talking about wokeness nonstop this early on, I mean, yeah, we'll see. Oh, and the fact that Harper v. Moore is probably not going to go through. Keep in mind, if Harper v. Moore and the independent state legislator doctrine is validated in the most conservative fashion possible, democracy essentially just stops existing in this country. But if they're not going to rule on it, that's pretty good. I don't think Republicans will change their rhetoric much. Me either. I don't think they're prepared to pivot. And they said they wouldn't mess with Roe v. Wade either. To be clear, Moore v. Harper. To be clear, the reason why I am saying this about Moore v. Harper is because my understanding is that some of the conditions that existed in which the case was brought to the Supreme Court no longer exist. That is my understanding of things. Because of the election, like the state of the case that was going to be brought forward, it's not the same as it was before. The legal specifics are a little bit beyond me. We can take a look at the most new information from the Wikipedia page, the only place I get my info. In March 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court asked the involved parties to submit 10-page briefs within days to assess whether the state court's decision to rehear the case rendered the High Court's consideration of the case moot, such that Moore might be dismissed. Parties on both sides of the case wrote in their briefs, the court should dismiss the case given the state's new review. Or in other words, the state court is going to hear the Moore v. Harper thing again. Therefore, it doesn't need to be brought to the Supreme Court. Which suggests that, if nothing else, it's very possible that Moore v. Harper might be pushed back a long time. This is very good news. Yeah, Supreme Court urged by DOJ and other parties to sidestep independent state legislator dispute. You all understand this is incredibly important, right? This is the Supreme Court case that could have ended American democracy. And now it's possible that even in the worst case scenario, it gets delayed by a year, maybe multiple years. Having it run through the state court again, I mean, that process could take a long time. And like the rest of the GOP, this too is something for which time works in our favor. We'll see. It's possible they could take a similar case.
Should take most of the times that a member in the Tennessee state legislature have gotten expelled, the last 2 times in particular. One, the guy committed sexual assault against 22 people. The other committed bribery. We broke a house rule because we're fighting for kids who are dying from gun violence and people in our communities who want to see an end to the proliferation of weaponry in our communities, and that leads to our expulsion. This is not democracy. This is not what it is supposed to look like, and everybody needs to be very afraid and very worried that there are people in positions of power who are using and wielding that power to expel people who are duly elected to their seats. For
those keeping score at home, things that will not get you expelled from the Tennessee state legislature: child molestation, domestic violence, federal investigation, peeing on your colleague's chair. People going wild over there in Tennessee, it seems. If only it was done in Mississippi, you know, you're the only miss who's piss-I-sippy. It's still going on.
Tennessee are not expelled because they stand with gun control, because they stand with our kids' lives. We demand action. We are tired of being scared. Little kids should not be scared when they're in school, and that is why I'm here.
I have another suggestion, okay? What if every classroom in America simply had that fold-out safe room? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay? What if we just did this? The idea began after the shooting in Uvalde.
Politics. We're just a small company that has, I feel like, innovative ideas that...
What if we put the entire school in the fold-out safe room? Yeah, what if there was a first shooter, and then everyone in the class ran into the fold-out safe room, but then it turns out the other shooter was waiting with the kids, and now they're locked in the fold-out safe room with the rest of you with their gun. You would need a second, smaller fold-out safe room that you could quickly scamper into to try to lock out the second one.
Can pass the test of time, and we wanted to bring our version of gun control to the nation. We have a deployable unit that folds into the wall and then comes out. It deploys in under 10 seconds, and the entire classroom can be in this and locked into a safe place within their classroom in a matter of 30 seconds or less. And then we have a fully deployed unit that is stationary, and it stays out all the time, and it's actually mounted solidly, and it's not deployable. We're now going to hopefully be able...
It's still a drop-down ceiling. You can... Yeah, it doesn't cover the ceiling. Can you imagine, like, the shooter just, like, goes out, walks up the staircase in the hallway, goes to the point above where that point in the classroom is, and just fires down through a bunch of, like, insulation and drywall panels?
Able to get these in every class.
This idea is a disgusting cash grab that seeks nothing but monetizing. But yeah, it's like war profiteering. Yeah, these people are ghouls, 100%.
Classroom in America to give everybody a chance to go home at night to their loved ones.
Not true, Canoe.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Nope, do not thank me. Don't want me.
Conversations
No.
about things that will prevent gun violence from coming to our doors. There are so many things we could do that would change
The size of the supporting crowd. Yeah, this is why you heard people roaring in applause after they were speaking, because this is what it was like directly outside. What is your interpretation of the Second Amendment? My interpretation of the Second Amendment is that, honest to God, it's stupid. It's stupid. The situation, the environment that we had when it comes to gun usage and gun technology and the context in which they were used back then is incomparable to what we have today. The whole point of a living document of a constitution is that you're supposed to interpret it in ways that make it continually applicable in the modern world. And the idea that we do that to everything else, but then well-regulated militia translates into infinite guns for everyone all the time, no limitation. It's completely retarded. And the only reason we have this discussion in the United States today is because we have ultra-rich weapons manufacturers who are in bed with our party's conservatives, or our country's conservatives, and B, because we have this American spirit of independence, cowboy yeehaw, old west bullshit attitude towards anything even remotely resembling freedom, even if it's not actually. Yeah, it's really dumb. The Second Amendment as a concept is really dumb. Break into my house and you'll catch my blunderbuss. True. How do you think it should be written? I don't know. That's complicated. Yeah. Wait, are you anti-gun now? No, I'm pro you guys having guns because I don't want the only people with guns in this country to be far-right lunatics. I'm pro-gun practically because practically this country has 400 million guns and we're not changing that. We're not disarming the population. We're not going to magically make all these far-right militias and all the fucking preppers and doomers and hicks or whatever not have guns. They have so many guns. It's not going to happen. In the world we live in, I am pro-gun because I don't want the worst people to be the only ones with guns. In an ideal world, however, obviously what we have going on right now is psychotic. We have more gun deaths than any other fucking developed country in the world. It's obviously if I could snap my fingers and change the world, really just change it, then yeah, I wouldn't have more guns than people in the borders of this country. That's really dumb. By the way, Deepak agrees with you on this, on owning firearms so that it's not just the cons who have them. Deepak is so based.
Listen, you bring up a really interesting point, and I have a lot of friends who are progressive gun owners, many, many, many friends. I've opted never to talk on the show about whether or not I own firearms. I've made it clear I support certain rules, and I've said we have a Second Amendment, but we have to do something about the gun. People know but I've sort of stopped short of saying exactly what I do or don't have, just because there doesn't seem to be any advantage to that. And if I said exactly what I do or don't have, I just don't know if there's any win there. But
yeah, guns are now the leading cause of death for U.S. children and teens. It's actually that bad. It's insane to think about it. In a world with cars and stairs and disease, it's guns. Everything surpassed cars back in 2020.
Thing that is very, very compelling to me is any scenario that is a hypothetical scenario that comes up in which the right-wingers have all or most of the guns, that doesn't sound good. Even if I think we are much better off reducing the number of firearms out 95%. And for example, even if we could limit them to people who demonstrate that they're for hunting use or it's for target shooting and you keep it at the range in a safe that's there, or if you can demonstrate an actual need for self-defense, not the vague, I've got 50 guns. Okay, maybe that would be the ideal thing, reduce the number of guns out there by 95%. We don't have that situation. And therefore, I don't really love the idea of the right-wingers having all the guns.
God, he's so based.
And what you're talking about, these contingency scenarios, make a lot of sense to me in terms of a motivation to say, I want to own some firearms. Well, listen, you bring...
In a good society, we wouldn't have guns. In a good society, obviously, we would have far, far less guns. I'm sure you could make a reasonable case for some kind of gun ownership. And I'm not principally opposed to gun ownership for self-defense or whatever. I mean, don't most people in Switzerland have a gun because it's part of their mandatory military training and they keep a rifle with no ammo in the house or something? I don't know. I mean, yeah, but no bullets. I wonder if that would be a better long-term strategy for gun control. where you like, let's say you could do the Switzerland thing, and households have like 1, maybe 2 guns at most, and people can own guns pretty decently, but like ammunition is much more controlled. So you can go to a gun range, and the gun range has bullets, and you can use those bullets, but you can't take home extras, you know, stuff like that. You know what I mean? I wonder if that'd be I wonder if that'd be like more sensible than trying to restrict the guns themselves. You know, then we'll just make our own. Well, you could, but that would be a crime. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's possible to do lots of crimes, but I think like broadly you could reduce the cycling of a lot. And keep in mind, like, ammunition is not easy to make if you can't buy the parts needed to make the ammunition, you know? Like, obviously in such a world, you couldn't just buy primers online. That would be illegal. And you know, you like empty casings. It's not like you can go to a gun range and scoop them all up. Like, reloading your ammo is easy enough if you can get the parts for it, but otherwise it's a hassle. What about hunters? Well, you know, specifics, provisions. Do you support mental health gun regulations? I fear they'd be turned against queer people too easily. I think that demonstrating a propensity for violence, or like psychotic tendencies, like you have breaks from reality, I think you could make a reasonable argument that stuff like that means maybe you shouldn't get a gun. But not all people with mental illness, because everyone's mentally ill. Domestic abuse, perhaps? Yeah, I don't think domestic abusers should I don't think domestic abusers should own guns. Yeah, bullets are pretty dang easy to make. A lot of the hunters are gonna make. Okay, well you could also make like a compound crossbow, right? You could get a crossbow, and anyone, you know, you can make a bolt out of, I don't know. I'm sure a person could make a bolt decently easily with a couple of simple tools. You know, it's always something you can do. They got Shinzo Abe with a doohickey. That's true. They doohickied his ass. Yeah.